up, YouTube? This is your host, Ranee B, here to spill that homicidal hot chocolate. Wait, okay, now see, in my head, that was really funny. But it's not funny, it's actually pretty sad because this is how dumb I am. I actually thought it would be humorous since we're covering a case from Sweden. Get it? Hot chocolate?
What?
Here in the States, like hot chocolate is synonymous with Swiss Miss hot chocolate. Swiss. As in Switzerland, a completely different country. 1,200 miles away, or 2,000 kilometers away from Sweden. So in my head, it was really, two totally separate countries that have nothing in common but my dumb associations. So this whole intro, let's just not showcase my ignorance with this nonsensical intro anymore and just jump right into it. The solved homicide case of Lisa Holm. Lisa Holm was a 17-year-old girl with striking features and a brilliance about her that almost guaranteed her a bright future. She had recently graduated from high school and had plans to continue her studies with a focus on social sciences. She lived in Kovda, Sweden, but she worked in a little charming area called the village of Blomberg, and she was a server at a cutest little cafe. It was a little bit of a drive from her home, so Lisa loved venturing out and learning about, even new people and areas outside the protective bubble that she grew up in. She just liked exploring places, people, and things. She had a wanderlust spirit about her it was blooming to make a great future for her one day, that's for sure. Lisa had gotten a graduation present, a new moped, and she finally wanted to take it to work instead of her parents picking her up and dropping her off. She was developing her normal desire for independence, and she wanted to venture out to the cafe on her own. So on June 7th, 2015, her father was nervous about it, and she requested to go alone. And he asked her if she was really ready, if she really thought that she was ready to take that moped that far, all on her own. So Lisa was adamant that she would be fine and that he doesn't need to worry. And, parents always worry about their babies. No matter how old you get, you're always like a little babbling 2-year-old angel in their eyes. So her father knew that it was time to start letting his baby become a young woman. And he did find comfort in the fact that he'd shown her the route many times to and from her workplace. And, that was the same comfort that Lisa felt because she knew the route so well. So just to make sure everything went okay, her parents had made plans to have lunch at the cafe. That way, if something did happen and she broke down on the way, they would be along shortly to be able to help her. So Lisa's parents, they left right after she did, whenever she left for work. And they wanted this peaceful lunch at this cafe surrounded by fields and beautiful, serene views of the Swedish countryside, not Swiss countryside. They arrived at the cafe. Lisa's face brightened up when she saw them, and everyone was relieved. And Lisa handled the trip with ease and finesse, and her parents got to enjoy a wonderful lunch with her as she took her break at that time as well. So as she sat with them, they enjoyed their meal, and she actually got to enjoy a little bowl of soup with them, just catching up and just chatting. It was just fun for everybody. Well, time went on, and it was time for her parents to leave. So Lisa's father, he sheepishly asked her, his baby girl, please text me when you're leaving work just to know. And she was like, okay. And she was just shaking her head at her protective but loving daddy as he waved at her through the window. Lisa continued working through her shift around till about 6:15, 6:20. And then she texted her father to say that she was leaving. And she also said her goodbyes to everyone on her way out, and one of them being her 15-year-old coworker named Julia. She had just scooted past Lisa on her way out just a few minutes earlier, also taking the same rural roads on her moped. But thinking back, Julia says at this moment, it's frozen in time. It's like one of those moments that normally would just be forgotten, not even recorded in your memory. It's not burned permanently into the movie reels of her mind. Because it was just that 5 minutes or so that Julia finished early. Those few precious minutes would be memorialized forever as the moments that saved her life. She still, to this day, hears herself say in her head from time to time when Lisa Holm crosses her mind, that could have been me if I had just left a few minutes later. And she was right. Lisa's father, only about 3 minutes after he received the text from Lisa saying that she was leaving, his phone rang, and it was Lisa. Well, when he picked it up, there was a lot of sounds of rustling and people talking and, people's muted voices. Nothing alarming, just talking, a lot of movement. There was a car door shutting and laughing and that sort of thing, and he assumed that it was a butt dial and thought no more of it. Turns out he's probably correct. It was just Lisa saying goodbye to her coworkers as they pulled out of the parking lot. And the rustling was probably when Lisa decided to put her sweatpants over her jeans before she left for a ride home. But she never made it there. It's by 7:30 p.m., after trying to be patient and not overbearing parents, they just couldn't take it anymore, and they tried to reach out to her. They called her on her phone, and it kept going to voicemail. And at this point, they were afraid that she'd gotten into an accident or something. So they went ahead and did a backtrack, and they searched the roadside ditches and culverts, everything on the way to the cafe. She was nowhere to be found. When they pulled into the parking lot at the little cafe, they were so relieved to see her moped. But when they got closer, they realized that her keys were dangling from the ignition. And this is something that Lisa would not have done. Like, this little moped was the keys to her independence. She never would have voluntarily left those keys there. Something happened. Her father checked the immediate area and made sure that she didn't get on any buses before he finally called the police. And once the police got there, they interviewed all the waitresses, and nobody'd seen anything. But after learning more about Lisa and getting to know her family and her habits, police, they instantly knew that this was not a runaway. This was an abduction. A search was started immediately to find the young girl, and they believed that she was in imminent danger and needed to be found in minutes, not hours or days. After a leadless night of searching, the next day, searchers had located some items of interest nearby, one specifically being a motorcycling glove that had been found in a barn across from the cafe. Lisa's parents positively identified it as one of the gloves that Lisa had owned. Searchers continued to look everywhere in that area, but it wasn't until Wednesday that searchers found a phone case, a train ticket, a Visa card, receipts, and her keys and driver's license on a gravel road that was on the properties that were in the same vicinity as that barn. Now, even though detectives spoke to everyone who had recently visited the cafe, they even collected DNA from everybody, including people in the neighborhood. The police were unable to find any leads. So, in a continuing effort to locate anything, they looked through the forests, they looked through the farm buildings. The Missing People organization actually gathered a search party of over 1,000 volunteers. They joined police forces with their horses. They had dogs. There was even, the police were even using a helicopter for an air view of the search area. As the search continued into the night, a lone searcher was using his flashlight to look around the barn. The barn, it was filled with that old smell of mustiness, dust, straw, that kind of thing. And as the searcher swept the area with his beam of light, something sparkled in the flashlight's view. It was an earring. And then another one. The same earrings that they had been alerted to look out for, that Lisa had been known to be wearing. Knowing that this scene could be of some importance, the researcher immediately left and alerted the authorities. And they returned with detectives that did a thorough search of the barn that night into Thursday. But since Lisa had still not been found, even into that following Friday, search parties continued looking for her. They arrived at a location known as Martorp Farm, and in a strange turn of events, 2 men pulled up next to where the search team was convening and said to them that this area had already been searched, so you're wasting your time. Something seemed off about these guys, though. I mean, they didn't seem like they were part of the volunteer group. It's not like they were just saying, hey, no, we already covered this area, come join us up here, we're focusing on our latest sweep here. No, it was more of an urgency in their voice, like an anxious, desperate energy attached to it. So trusting their gut, the search group called the detectives and reported it. And in fact, no one had been assigned by the search party leaders at headquarters to search anywhere other than this area yet. However, when the volunteers reported this incident to the police, they grew suspicious. Detectives, in conjunction with the search party leaders, were dispatched to assist potentially protect these searchers, to continue to search the Martorp area. When the police came out to assist them in light of these creepy distractors, they quickly discovered Lisa's helmet, jacket, and headphones nestled among the straw leaves and twigs. There was an old wooden work building, kind of a trailer-like kind of building, nearby, and when they approached, it appeared to have been accessed recently. Like I told you earlier, it was rural, farm-like area. Tall trees, grasses, all that kind of thing. The type of area where nature has no constraints of lawnmowers or hedge clippers. This greenery grew as it wanted. But in this particular area, the grasses were disturbed and flattened, as if someone was clearly walking on them recently. And this wasn't the only disturbance that was caused by an outside force. This normally peaceful place that smelled of pollen and flowers and just outdoors. It was an undeniable, unmistakable stench of human decomp that hung in the air. And it confirmed what everyone was so desperately not wanting to believe. Searchers entered carefully this building, and slowly they seen that the interior of this building was probably once it served home as some sort of changing room with benches and lockers. Searching diligently, opening every single locker. There was a bunch of them. They were all empty, except for one. And now it had a pile of like worn out clothing inside of it. They continued unlocking every single one of these lockers. Absolutely nothing. They finally went back to the locker that had the clothes in it. And it turns out that when they tugged on it to get it out, it wasn't clothing at all. They found Lisa. Her lifeless body was found after it had apparently been shoved into this extremely small opening. Once they carefully and respectfully took her out, they found that she had been duct taped over her lips and nose. And there had been a rope that was around her neck. She was only partially clothed, and the extensive damage to this young, frail girl's neck, it looked like she had been deliberately and violently strangled. Needless to say, once notified, Lisa's family was devastated, as were the searchers, and locals and police. This case, as it went on, it developed, it had captured the hearts and minds of the entire country. Since the time that Lisa had vanished from view, people had become a fixture in the national news praying for the missing teenager. They pleaded and prayed publicly for her safe return, which is now sadly unfulfilled. But all wasn't lost, per se. The police never forgot about those distractors, the two brothers that were found to be from Lithuania. They were laborers on Mortorp Farm, and coincidentally, also the barn next to the cafe. Their house stood between the barn and the farm, and it went straight onto a gravel road. Oh, gravel road. Yeah, that gravel road, where Lisa's belongings had been strewn about like garbage. Police wasted no time bringing in the pair. Averis Balvikius and Neregius Balvikius, along with Neregius' wife. In what sounded almost like a rehearsed interview, all three, unsurprisingly, verified each other's alibis. All denied any role in Lisa's demise. How convenient. Public scrutiny of the police work done in this case mounted, specifically how lackadaisical the job had been for them searching the first barn. And eventually, the detectives listened to the criticism. What's that like? Because in America, that don't happen. Anyway, they re-examined the barn once again, and they found there were multiple rooms, a milk room, and an office among them. Now, the office, it featured a sizable window that provided a clear view of the cafe, where you could easily see the young girls that served the customers. And you were also able to see how easily they would be coming and going, and what time they would be coming and going. Detectives examined the wall below the window and found seminal fluid, clear signs that someone had been pleasuring themselves while looking out that window. The DNA profile that came back from these seminal samples tested positive for Neregius. Now we're going to call him Nasty Neri because I don't like saying his whole name. Re-interviewing the servers from the cafe, many of them said that now that they think about it, it wasn't something in the forefront of their minds because it just become so happenstance that they got used to it. They'd noticed that one or both of those brothers would be looking at them through that window.
People are crazy.
Further forensic collections slowly told a sad tale of what happened to Lisa Holm. There was a rope-covered pipe that was protruding from the wall in the milk room. The rope was tested and was found to contain Lisa's DNA, making the assumption that she was probably strangled, most likely, in that room. Maybe, perhaps even hung from that pipe while he watched her. There was also hair strands that were in the rope, and they can match Lisa's DNA. This was just the beginning of the horrific timetable that was put together by the police. Police had actually finally pieced together that Lisa was getting onto her scooter when Nasty Neri pulled up next to her in his car, and he probably asked her some sort of question, something to get the dialogue going, to get her attention. They assumed this because a local woman later testified that shortly before Lisa was abducted, a man who spoke only English asked for directions from her and then attempted to convince her to get into his car. This was important because good old Nereidus never learned how to speak Swedish. So, an English-speaking man, he looked like a laborer,
Electric chair.
It was presumed that Lisa probably walked up to his car because she's friendly. You know, she's a server. That's how you make your money. Where he probably physically overcame her and dragged her to the barn. There he probably quieted her with the duct tape to muffle her screams. And then he strangled her to death. And then after doing so, he hung her from that milk room pipe while he pleasured himself. There was no indecent assault found at autopsy, but seminal fluid was discovered on her clothing and her underwear, proving that his attack was clearly motivated by homicidal sexual violence. The detectives believe that he then transported Lisa's lifeless body to Martorp Farm, the trailer, and shoved her, like a bunch of rags or garbage, into one of the lockers. On his way home, he just tossed out her belongings at random, hoping no one would ever find them. Whatever. Well, police didn't have anything of importance against the brother or his wife, so they were both cleared, and they both hightailed it back to Lithuania. Well, Nereidus, he remained in Sweden, but he still had that alibi that was confirmed by two separate people. So Swedish investigators made their way to Lithuania to try to strengthen their case, and boy, did they. There, they told Ivaris, his brother, about the excruciating details of the death of Lisa Holm, and they meticulously covered in precise detail the disgusting timeline that Nasty Neri navigated that night. When Nereidus, his brother, learned of all this and all these horrific things that poor girl went through, he lost it. He came clean about how his brother has been acting that night. He said that Nereidus had been acting really weird and suspicious that evening, and he remembered his brother leaving the house and then returning immediately, throwing everything that he was wearing into their washing machine. Then he was acting anxious and nervous and pacing around, and when the police came later that same night to question them about the missing girl, Neri just urged both his wife and his brother, give me an alibi. Because he explained it, that he said anything bad or criminal would surely be pinned on an immigrant. So they need to stick together and not let their status as non-citizens cause them trouble with the law. Well, that was enough for police. They had Nereidus' DNA on Lisa's clothing and undergarments as well as the crime scene. So now, the alibi that old Nasty Neri leaned on was shattered. It was a slam dunk court case. Not surprisingly, in November of 2015, Nereidus was found guilty and was given a life sentence for the murder of Lisa Holm. Now, don't you wish they had the death penalty? We'll get to that. And as expected, he went on to file numerous appeals, and all of them fell on deaf ears. Well, he did ask to be relocated to his home country in Lithuania, which was granted, and we are ever so grateful for that. See, according to Lrytas, the Lithuanian news portal, prisoners, they were doing some work on a remote site, on a farm. And at some point, Nereidus was reported to have been stabbed with some sort of shank or handmade weapon by another inmate. They say he was transported to a hospital, but later succumbed to his injuries. Oh no. Well, that other prisoner who was out on that work site, the suspect, who I think should be rewarded somehow because he actually must have learned something while his stay in prison. Because, I mean, he finally did the right thing and rid this planet of this worthless jackass. But anyway, he was at the time of the report, he was under investigation for this act. Well, a small bummer, though, is that I found out that our new little Lithuanian friend was serving a life sentence for a serious violent crime, which more than likely means it was for murder. So, damn. But anyway, I mean, I guess he shouldn't be released, but, I mean, can't he just get some extra candy from the commissary or something? Or some, double food for a week? I don't know. Something. A better mattress, maybe? One more thing before we go. Something else I found researching this case. So absolutely disgusting. It's an advertisement. Right there. A karate studio that used Lisa's case in its publicity. It stated that if she had known karate, she would probably be alive today. Like, it used her name. Dude, you have no idea that that's true. And how dare you prey on traumatic events to boost sales of your stupid karate business? That's crazy. I don't even know how people comprehend that that's okay. I swear, the more I do this, the more I dislike this planet more and more. Ugh. Anyway, well, that is it for this case. I do see that this has been covered a lot on YouTube quite a bit. So if I missed something in this case, just let me know. And if you never heard of it, also let me know. I found this case on Tumblr of all places. Isn't that weird? I mean, I never heard of it. I mean, that's crazy because it's like equivalent in Sweden to the Casey Anthony case here in the States. Everybody knows that case here. Everyone. It was a monster media frenzy case. And apparently Lisa Holm's case in her home country of Sweden was the same way. It's crazy, though, that how these kind of cases don't populate in the news coverage everywhere. But that's what YouTube is for, right? So anyway, until the next video, take care of yourselves and keep honoring these victims in your mind. And keep making fun of these idiot killers like, oh, nasty, nary idiot. But we don't have to make fun of him anymore because he's dead.
What's up, Spud?
This is the only time that really being a bully is acceptable, so why not enjoy it? Talk to you later. Bye!